Have you ever wondered what makes people capable of creating changes that impact their lives and the world around them? What is their way of thinking, their mentality, their patterns, their perceptions of the world, their reactions to different life events? What influences them? My name is Cristina Pujol, and I invite you to join me in this adventure where we will explore together the mind of change makers.
We live by agreements. And what is an agreement? The condition of having the same opinion or a decision or arrangement between two or more people or groups to do something or to obey the same rules. We have agreed on what a country is, what money is, the value of money, the day we are in, the year we're living in, what is the name of the place we're at, and what is good and what is bad. Agreements are different in different societies, in different communities and cultures. In many agreements, we agree, and in many others, we do not. And that is why there are dialogues, negotiations, contracts, courts, judges, disputes, and wars. Contracts between bosses and employees are agreements. Relationships are agreements. We have agreements with ourselves. Between me and my coaching or dance clients, there are agreements. When I start sessions, we talk about the agreements: confidentiality, commitment, presence, etc. Some agreements are made assuming many things, and that can cause many disagreements. Some agreements were made years ago, and we forgot we made them, and we are held to those agreements. Sometimes we have expectations, but we never made agreements, and that happens a lot in the workplace, for example, and in relationships, and can cause many problems. Agreements play an important role in almost all areas of life. They help us set expectations, clarify responsibilities, and build trust with others. Some areas of life where agreements are particularly important include the relationships. Agreements are essential in relationships, whether between family, friends, or romantic partners. They help set mutual expectations and help ensure that everyone is aligned with a purpose. It's also important in the workplace. Agreements are crucial in the workplace. They can include employment contracts, team agreements, agreement between colleagues, and between employees and managers. In legal and contractual, agreements are a fundamental part of our legal system. The fourth is in societies and cultures. They are built on agreements. Social norms, customs, traditions are forms of agreements that dictate how people are expected to behave in different situations. And agreements are also very important in personal life. For example, people make agreements with themselves, such as setting personal goals or committing to a healthy lifestyle. That's also an agreement. In short, agreements play a role in almost all areas of life, helping to set expectations, build trust, and facilitate cooperation and collaboration. While there may be some areas of life where agreements are less prominent, they are an integral part of human interaction and relationships, and the relationship with ourselves. What agreements do you have in your workplace? What agreements do you have in your relationships? What agreements do you have with yourself? Do you have agreements or expectations? And that is why, speaking the other day with some fellow coaches about the importance of establishing agreements with our clients, I thought that it would be great to review and share the 4 agreements of Don Miguel Ruíz in this podcast. For those who have read this book, which was published in 1997 and has become a classic in personal development, it will be a review, and I think that's always helpful. And for those who haven't heard of this book, well, it can be a reminder to turn down the volume to that internal judge who's not control or question, who finds fault in everything we do and punishes us for every mistake. This internal judge sometimes make us live cautious life and make us waste energy, monitoring our every move, comparing ourselves to others, judging everything that happens around us, and taking everything personally. The 4 agreements offer a simple yet profound set of guidelines for living a life of personal freedom, happiness, and fulfillment. By following these agreements, people can free themselves from limiting beliefs, social programming, and negative patterns of behavior. The principles outlined in the four agreements have the power to transform one's life, and the book has inspired millions of people around the world to live more authentic and fulfilling lives. So let's dive into the four agreements and see how we can choose them to create a better and more fulfilling life. And I must say that the four agreements remain relevant today because the principles and the messages described in the book are timeless and universal. Despite being published over 2 decades ago, the book continues to speak to people from all walks of life, and its popularity shows no signs of waning. The agreement number 1 is be impeccable with your word. The word impeccable comes from the Latin words im and peccatus, which means without sin. The biggest sin you can commit, says author Don Miguel Ruíz, is self-rejection. When you repeatedly judge yourself for making a mistake and think, I'm a mess or I'm an idiot, you are committing to the deadly sin of self-rejection. When you agree to be impeccable with your word, you agree to stop repeating words that make you feel worse. Berating yourself distracts you from taking corrective action. It's like taking a test again and someone behind you saying, you know you screwed up the last time, right? Why do you screw up? It's not going to go well. It's not going to work. Just set the intention to stop using words to hurt yourself and others. The more you judge others, the more you judge yourself. That is a fact. Judging others is like throwing a boomerang that hits you in the back of the neck again. When you go to bed each night, reflect on the quality of the words that you spoke to yourself and to others during the day. Imagine that every word you said was broadcast to every phone in the world for everyone to hear. Ask yourself, did my words lift people up or did they bring them down? Would I be proud of my words or ashamed? The first agreement asks us to take responsibility for our words and be aware of the impact they have on others and on ourselves. Here are some key points to consider when implementing the first agreement. Speak with intention. Before you speak, take a moment to consider what you want to communicate and why, what for, what is your objective. This will help you to choose your words more carefully and not to respond to every provocation or everything that pulls your strings, and to assure that your words align with your intentions. Avoid negativity. The first agreement asks us to avoid the use of negative language, such as criticism, judgment, blame. Instead, we should strive to use language that is positive, supportive, and encouraging. And here I know some people will disagree because in some cases, to motivate themselves, some people prefer to hear and tell themselves all the negative things to move in the direction they want. But this can be helpful in adequate proportions, 20% negative to push and 80% positive to keep moving toward where you want to go. Practice truthfulness. The first agreement also asks us to be true to our words. This means avoid lying, exaggerating, or misleading others and us. When we speak honestly, we build trust and credibility with those around us and with ourselves. Conscious self-talk. The first agreement applies not only to our interaction with others, but also, and I say most importantly, to our self-talk. We must strive to be aware of the thoughts we think and the words we use to describe ourselves and our experiences. It's a big thing that influences our emotions. How we talk is going to also affect our emotions. By following the first agreement, we can create a more positive and fulfilling life for ourselves and those around us. By being impeccable with our word, we build trust, foster healthy relationships, and cultivate a more positive and supportive inner world. Agreement number 2, don't take anything personally. This agreement involves recognizing that other people's words and actions are a reflection of their own experiences and beliefs, rather than a reflection of us. The idea is to avoid getting caught up in negative emotions and doubts when others treat us badly or say hurtful things to us. When someone insults you, imagine that person is full of poison and his or her words are poison projected at you. If you take his or her insults personally, you will ingest his or her poison. If you eat their poison, you will feel like a victim and it will be very difficult for you to think clearly. To stop feeling like a victim, remember that nothing anyone does is personal. If someone criticizes you, it's not personal. They criticize you for who they are, not for who you are. They criticize you because they were fed lies that made them hate you and they believe those lies. They criticize you because life dealt them a series of unfortunate blows and they are hurt and angry. They criticize you because they're suffering. Choose to see the hurtful words and actions as a result of that someone's pain and suffering. Instead of thinking, why me? Think, poor them. Choose to be compassionate instead of choosing to be a victim. You can be compassionate and still seek justice. If a person shoots you, make sure he goes or she goes to prison, but do it for the common good. This person is dangerous to himself or herself and others, and not to seek revenge. You can seek justice without feeling outraged and without hating the person who wronged you. It requires work, of course. But if you don't take anything personally, you won't adopt the victim role. And if you don't feel like a victim, you don't put yourself in a vulnerable state where the inner judge can thrive and keep you down and repress. Here are some key points to consider when implementing the second agreement. Recognize projection. Other people's words and actions are often a projection of their own insecurities, fears, and experiences. When someone treats us badly or says something hurtful, it's rarely about us, but rather a reflection of their own challenges. Maintain your own self-esteem. This agreement asks us to maintain a healthy sense of self-esteem, even in the face of criticism or negativity from others. By recognizing that the words and actions of others are not a reflection of us, we can avoid taking things personally and maintain our own sense of self-worth. We're not buying everybody else's story about us. We buy our own story about us, and that also we need to watch what we're saying to ourselves. Practice detachment. The second agreement implies a degree of detachment from the opinions and actions of others. We must strive to remain neutral and not get caught up in negative emotions when others treat us poorly. One way to practice is to argue in a dialogue the opinion contrary to yours. And you will see how suddenly you find that maybe your opinion is not so different from the opposite, and it makes you question why you adopted that opinion. Focus on your own journey and experiences. By focusing on your own growth and development, you avoid getting bogged down in negative emotions and self-doubt. This second agreement, by following it, you can cultivate a more peaceful and fulfilling life. By not taking personally everything, we can avoid getting caught up in negative emotions and maintain a healthy sense of self-esteem, even in the face of criticism or negativity from others. And it's so important nowadays, this agreement, because with social media, we get so caught up with likes and dislikes and not likes and comments and negative comments. And it's important to not take everything personally. The third agreement, don't make assumptions. This agreement involves avoiding the tendency to make assumptions about others, their intentions, and their experiences. The idea is to approach others with curiosity and openness rather than jumping to conclusions based on our own beliefs and experiences. This in coaching is essential. Don't assume anything. We as coaches don't know anything. And in NLP, we talk about the meta model of the language and to detect omissions. When you assume and you're wrong, the inner judge has a reason to scold you. Keep the internal judge quiet by avoiding assumptions. When you have an ounce of doubt, clarify. This is essential in all relationships. If you habitually make assumptions, you will experience countless interpersonal conflicts. So here are some key points to consider when implementing this third agreement. Ask questions when you are unsure about something. This will help avoid making assumptions and gain a clearer understanding of the situation. Avoid projection. Avoid projecting your own beliefs and experiences onto others. When we make assumptions about others, we risk missing important information and creating misunderstanding. Like a friend of us who's an amazing coach says, your fishbowl is not someone else's fishbowl. Don't put your fishes, your fish into someone else's fishbowl. Practice active listening. The third agreement involves active listening, which means paying attention to what others are saying and engaging in open and honest communication. By actively listening, we can avoid making assumptions and gain a deeper understanding of the perspective of others. Be open to new information. Approach others and new information with an open mind rather than assuming that we already know everything there is to know. This can help us grow and expand our understanding of the world and is connected with having a growth mindset, which we talked about in another episode. By following the third agreement, we can cultivate deeper and more meaningful relationships with others and avoid misunderstandings and conflicts. By avoiding assumptions and engaging in open and honest communication, we can create a more harmonious and fulfilling lives for ourselves and those around us. And more interesting too, because we're open to learning new things, to see things from another perspective, and not always from our own perspective. Agreement number 4, always do your best. This agreement implies a commitment to give our best at all times instead of seeking perfection or comparing ourselves to others. The idea is to approach life with a growth mindset, which we talked before, and focus on personal growth and improvement. Honor this agreement, and your inner judge will have no basis to judge you. If you have done the best you could and the judge tries to judge you, as Don Miguel Ruíz says, you have the answer. I did the best I could. Focus on improving and praise improvement over achievement. Do the best you can also by doing the best you can do to enjoy the process. That's also very important. Here are some key points to consider when implementing this fourth agreement. Do your best, don't perfect. The fourth agreement asks us to do our best at every moment instead of striving for perfection. This is good for perfectionists. It is important to recognize that our best efforts will vary from moment to moment depending on our energy levels, our resources, and the experiences that we've had. Be kind to yourself, which means treating yourself with kindness and understanding. When we're doing our best, it's important to acknowledge our efforts and avoid beating ourselves up for perceived failures or shortcomings in the form of lashing out. Sometimes we forget to acknowledge the path that we've already walked, the efforts that we've already put. We're always looking forward and we forget to give ourselves acknowledgments. Focus on personal growth and improvement rather than comparing ourselves to others. By focusing on our journey, on our own journey, we can avoid getting caught up in negativity and cultivate a more fulfilling life. And last but not least, practice gratitude and acknowledging the good things in our lives, even in the face of challenges. By doing so, we can cultivate a positive outlook and maintain a sense of perspective even in difficult times. North American basketball coach John Wooden, who with his lifelong team, the UCLA Bruins, won 10 championships in 12 years, 7 of them in a row, a record that still stands, insistently reminded his player of this agreement. He was very famous in praising improvement over the achievement. He has very famous phrases related to this. And here are a few. Success comes from knowing that you did your best to become the best you could be. Never try to be better than someone else. The important thing is to never stop fighting to be the best that one can be. Do your best every time your best effort is required. And by the way, every day your best effort is required. Make every day your masterpiece. By doing our best in every moment and focusing on personal growth, we can avoid negative self-talk and cultivate a positive outlook. By practicing self-compassion and gratitude, we can cultivate a more harmonious and joyful life for ourselves and those around us. These are the 4 agreements. Practice them. And if you break them, that's okay. Forgive yourself and start over. Every day is a new opportunity to honor the 4 agreements and those that you make with yourself and with others. And if you practice gradually, these 4 agreements can become second nature, and you find yourself on the path of personal freedom. What agreements will you set with yourself? Here are some questions you can ask yourself to help you follow the 4 agreements. For the first agreement, be impeccable with your word. Am I speaking sincerely and kindly? Do my words help or hurt others? Am I using my words to lift up or to tear down? Am I speaking with integrity? Am I being aware of the impact of my words on others? Am I avoiding gossip and negativity? For the second agreement, take nothing personally. Do I take the things others say or do personally? Are my feelings affected by external factors? Do I let the opinions of others define me? Do I let the actions and words of others affect my self-esteem? Am I able to separate my own feelings from the actions of others? Am I allowing the opinions of others to control my thoughts and emotions? For the third agreement, don't make assumptions. Am I making assumptions about others or about situations? What other meaning can this have? What does this mean for you? Am I open to new information and perspectives? Am I assuming how others are thinking and feeling? Am I jumping to conclusions without seeking more information? Am I open to new ideas and perspectives rather than going my own way all the time? And for the fourth agreement, always do your best. Am I doing my best right now, given my current circumstances? Am I being kind to myself and acknowledging my efforts? Am I focusing on growth and improvement rather than perfection? Am I giving my all in every task and situation? Am I kind and understanding of myself when I make a mistake? By regularly reflecting on these questions, you can cultivate a greater awareness of your thoughts and behaviors and work to align them with the 4 agreements. And this can lead to a greater personal growth and fulfillment, as well as stronger and more harmonious relationship with others. If you would like to get these questions, let me know. Send me a DM. I always leave my contact information in the notes, and I will send them to you. Thank you for this shared time. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope you're getting tremendous value out of it. If there's any questions or theme you want me to cover in this podcast, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. And since many of you share with me that you want to support this podcast, we have created a Patreon account where you can support this podcast at 3 levels, and it's at patreon.com/changemaker. I will leave the link in the episode notes. This will help us keep growing. And to support this podcast at zero cost, subscribe on any or all of the platforms of your choice: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Google Podcasts, Deezer. And you can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and 5 stars if you think we deserve it. A huge, huge hug and kisses to you, Change Maker.